Sleep no more, Macbeth hath murdered sleep, and such is the title of the Comsat Angels' second album, the post-punk masterpiece Sleep No More, released in 1981. And the parallels to Shakespeare's Macbeth go further than that with the sleepwalking. There's this somnambulant, nightmarish quality to the album, which is very, very difficult to appreciate unless the album is played loud and potentially in the dark. It shouldn't be a surprise, though, that there are these references to Shakespeare and literary allusions, because the band itself took its name, the Comsat Angels, from the story of the same name by J.G. Ballard. And it has parallels for the band. And as I was reading it the other day, some things kind of jumped out and stood out to me. And if I can quote, what struck me immediately was the lack of any emotion or expression on his face, as if he had left his mind in the other room. And as I said about that coldness and austerity, one could be forgiven for thinking that this is an emotionless, expressionless album, but it'd be far from the truth. And then there's this other idea that they had a sudden burst of fame and exposure and they vanished into thin air. Well, the album, as I said, came out in 1981, and in a sense it vanished into thin air because it only reached 51 on the charts. And one of the reasons for that was one of those worst stories in rock and roll. As Stephen Fellows, the guitar and vocalist, says, I don't think Polydor expected it to sell so fast. It went out of stock and it took 2 weeks to get more. My God. Comsat Angels were from Sheffield in the north of England, and the album was co-produced by Peter Wilson, who had done work with The Jam and would go on to work with Paul Weller again with the Style Council. And it's very well known for this production technique of recording the drums, where he put the drums outside the elevator shaft on the fourth floor of the Polydor building. And Mik Glaisher was playing there with microphones strung 3 floors up and 3 floors down. And you can just imagine Mik Glaisher going, oh my God, am I ever going to be heard? And so then banging the hell out of his drums in what turned out to be not only a nightmare of percussion, Strawberry Alarm Clock reference there, but also a percussion masterpiece. Absolutely amazing. So let's revisit this album. And for those who don't know, get to appreciate this lost masterpiece. And for those who do know, take on board that opportunity to watch, enjoy, spin it again, and to play it loud. The fun begins on side one with the eye dance, and where we have pounding drums from Mik start to assault us as Kevin's bass sort of slides around the mix, propelling the song forward. Andy's keys produce this incredible ethereal tone, which allows Stephen to begin with playing his guitar harmonics, and he does this constantly throughout the album. And then that moves into him playing with a razor-sharp vibrato piercing through the entire mix. It's a song perhaps of loneliness, of longing and regret, and these lyrics really appeal to me. Some things are never spoken, some things are never done, but if we could just forget our manners just once. It's a killer start to the album, and then we go into the title track, Sleep No More, and we have that cavernous drum sound once again assault us. It's coming down the elevator shaft and up the elevator shaft. It's a slower song, a more supple sort of, what's the word for it? Ethereal song again, a moody song. But I love the bass notes that Kevin plays, which sort of define the chords. And that allows over the top to get this timeless swirling wash of keyboards and guitars. Absolutely amazing sonic experience here. And back to the lyrics. Lights cut through the center and the darkness hides its shape. And I swear it could almost be a different place. But the world is covered over and the stars are shining bright. We will make our escape into the night. And then we kick up another gear with the song Be Brave, and as Stephen said at the university gig, and with Reagan in power, we're going to have to be. Yeah. Fuzz bass octaves commence from Kevin immediately, and there's a immense amount of chorus on the guitar with that overdrive, producing an angular, edgy quality to it with the swirls of keys, again, very unsettling. There's a sense too with the keyboards here from Andy that he's never quite playing totally melodically. There's always something slightly dissonant in what he's doing. We then pounce into this instrumental break, which I think any fans of early U2 and bands sort of that era would definitely appreciate. And I love then the murky instrumental break after that, that then springs us into the lyrics out of the dark and into the light, looking for a way around it. When it calls, we won't hear, we will shout and drown it out. That moves us then on to the next song, which is called Gone, and that's a dark minor key song. And it's I think it's very disturbing in its refusal to sort of go to a traditional chorus. There's so much space. You can hear every note of every instrument played. And that's not to say they're not playing a lot of notes. They're playing quite a few. But we're listening to guitar and keyboard lines and riffs rather than power chords or stabs of chords. And again, we have themes of oppression, repression, and paranoia, depression. And the lyrics, someone has been removed. What happened to her? She got lost somewhere between there and here, somewhere between, so far, so near. And the side runs out with the epic Dark Parade, which is about the loss of life in the 1970s failed US hostage raid in Tehran. Ominous guitars and keys and drums take us into the tragic setting of the botched hostage rescue attempt. And the instrumental breaks throughout give us that sense. We can hear the helicopters landing and the absolute swirl of wind as you can feel that they're not able to land quite successfully. They're teetering from side to side as gunfire propels itself and pounds itself across the tarmac. It's have these metallic squalls of desperation and despair, and to me, it gives me that same sense of darkness associated with The Doors' "The End" as it was featured in Apocalypse Now, that great movie with that great use of that song in the soundtrack. The lyrics, over sea and over sand, in a deserted heart of a desert land. Rotor blades like charred palm trees signify no success, no release. The rhythm and tempo builds to a discordant crescendo of the darkest parade. That last sentence was me talking, of course. The rhythm and the tempo of the song right at the end forces us to build in intensity and anger towards this moment of the darkest parade. It's an astonishing, as I said, intense way to round out the first side to this album. Side 2 opens with Diagram, and once again we're thrown into those spacious, cavernous sounds with the drums echoing throughout the mix, and that's joined by the slithering, slinky bass line that Kevin produces, and that sets the scene for this classic post-punk song. Paranoid guitar is absolutely manic. The vibrato sounds are backed with these stabs of keys, and I love the lyrics here. Here is anticipation, but no defense. How I hate his innocence. See his face, see his eyes, full of trust, so unwise. Very cool way to start the second side of the album. And that moves us into a slower track called Restless, which opens with these beautiful guitar harmonics and a funereal drum and bass rhythm section. And Stephen is whispering his vocals that are slowly moving through the mix and then gradually emanating above the wash. The bass nuance here is a thing of excellence. It reminds me a lot of Mick Kahn from Japan, and that is saying something. Great lyrics too. The day is winding slowly backwards. I'm trying to remember something she said, but no sense remains. She has chased it all away. It's all tension and no release here, taking us into the next song, Goat of the West. And one would assume we're talking about the goat as in the greatest of all time of the West. And but I think perhaps they're actually being ironic here that this guy is the goat of the West. We pick up the pace now with a strident, warlike call to action from the rhythm section. It's got a lot of echoes of that early U2, and also it sounds to me a bit like a dark brother to "In a Big Country" by Big Country, and it's counterpointed throughout by a slow, sort of chanting, multi-tracked vocal with lots of echo or reverb on it. I would have thought. It's a chaotic build-up also from the guitars and the band at the end. Absolutely ferocious. And here are some lyrics. He just played his biggest part. His country took him to his heart. the latest episode on the worldwide screen, and it's the worst one I've ever seen. He has lost his winning smile. He has to show he's human too. I think we'll have to wait a long time because I just don't believe it's true. Surely this is about Reagan again, and has great echoes for our contemporary politics at the moment, wouldn't you say? That then takes us into Light Years. And Light Years is an interesting song because it sets us up for something it's not. It begins with these beautiful guitar harmonics from Stephen, and the wistful chorus effect on the notes begin to give us the feel that there's going to be a radio-friendly big pop ballad, or at least sort of new wave ballad about to begin. But then the doom descends like it's being spray painted. They're spray painting desolation all over this song. There are astonishing keyboard swirls that have enough dissonance to be really off-putting and almost nihilistic. And Stephen attacks the guitar, gets this really gnarly tone happening. The intensity here can produce heart palpitations. I mean, sure, there are echoes of Joy Division here, but how influential were these guys? If everybody who saw the Sex Pistols back in the day went and joined a band or started a band, or the Velvet Underground, same story. I bet the same was there for the Comsat Angels around this period. You couldn't not go and see this band and not want to start a band at the time. Great lyrics here too. Years of life waiting for what might have been. No more. Take our friends, raise them up, keep them safe for us. And then we might come to the classic song on the album. I know a lot of people that I've been reading online really love this one. It's called Our Secret. And you know it's a classic immediately from the bass riff. And then the drums snap it in, always in time. But it's interesting. We've got this constant beat happening throughout, I think maybe on the kick drum. But the snare and the hi-hat are always hitting a different part of the, I can't speak in drummer's language, a different part of the bar. So once again, it gives us that off-putting sense to it. We're never able just to settle at all. And there are pads of keyboards from Andy, which helps underpin this guitar riffage from Stephen, which builds towards a memorably defiant chorus. And then towards the end, I think something happens to the hi-hats. Why am I talking about drums all of a sudden? Hi-hats, where they become very clean and very sharp. And there are stabs of keyboards behind them, which add so much texture towards the end. And the chanting vocals leads us towards this wonderful finale. And the lyrics, every boy and every girl all around the world lives in hope. One world at a time. One world only. That's the secret, and they will never give it up. Such a resilient statement to end the album, with all the darkness and the despair and the coldness and the austerity and the depression and the vitriol and the violence and the anger that's directed at politicians and people ruining our world. There's this sense somehow that there may be hope at the end. But we will sleep no more until it happens. So to me, Sleep No More is an essential post-punk masterpiece. It's one of those albums that, for those who know, they know. And for those who don't, can I please recommend you give it a listen? But as I said at the start, I really recommend you listen to it really loud. And the reason for that is something to do with the mix and the production. I think there's a sense of collective unity about this band. I mean, they wrote all the songs together and co-produced it with Peter Wilson. But it's almost a sense that they treat every instrument very equally, and that includes the vocals. And so they all tend to just sort of like sit in the mix. I mean, you can hear everything that's being played, but I think with a bit of volume, it really gives some separation to the instruments. It gives it a sparse quality as well, which allows the nuance of the vocals and the vocals themselves to just spring up and blossom at the top of the mix. And maybe it's a sense that they're no better than no man and no man's better than them. No, they're no better than no band and no band's better than them, or whatever the hell I'm talking about. A self-effacing quality, I think. And that's really summed up in this great story from Stephen Fellows when he's talking about his decision around this time not to sign any more autographs. And I'll quote, I suddenly decided I wasn't going to sign any more autographs, and this guy came up to me after a gig and asked me for my autograph. I said, "Look, I'm no different to you. There's no reason why you should want my autograph. I'm not a big star. I don't want to be. I'm just the same as you." And the guy said, "Yeah, but it'd be a nice souvenir." And I said, "Forget it. You don't need it." And this went on for about 10 minutes until the guy walks off going, "F you." And Stephen says, "I thought about that long and hard and realized it would be far better if I had have just said, 'Yeah, nice to see you,' and signed my name." Well, another opportunity lost for a band that probably didn't push themselves or get the luck as much as they deserve, because they do deserve so much more respect and recognition. I mean, this album, as I said at the start, sat on the shelves or empty shelves for 2 weeks because they didn't have any stock. Later on in their career, they weren't even allowed to call themselves the Comsat Angels anymore because of copyright problems, and they called themselves the CS Angels. But this is terrible. But revisiting this album has given me a lot of pleasure. And also, this is my 100th upload to YouTube, and that's given me a lot of pleasure as well. And as I always say, if music of any size or shape gives you pleasure, then who am I to argue with your opinion? And I mean it. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please give it a like, think about subscribing, and check out some of those other videos. But until next time, hope you're all traveling really well, and bye now.